The glass-walled conference room of Hawthorne Financial buzzed with anticipation as senior executives filed in for the quarterly strategy meeting. Olivia Reed kept her head down, arranging presentation materials with methodical precision while Elle. The room filled with expensive suits and carefully cultivated power poses. "Is the projection ready, Olivia?" Dominic Foster's voice carried the casual condescension he reserved specifically for her. At 38, Dominic had ascended to Chief Investment Officer with ruthless efficiency, his Harvard MBA and family connections smoothing a path that others found riddled with obstacles. "Everything's prepared, Mr. Foster," Olivia replied, her voice steady despite the familiar knot of frustration tightening in her stomach. 4 years at Hawthorne, a master's degree in financial analysis, and 3 successful client portfolios that she'd rescued from disaster. Yet she remained the assistant in Dominic's eyes. The meeting proceeded with predictable choreography. Senior partners claimed credit for successful strategies, while Olivia's research underpinned nearly every presentation slide. She noticed Veronica Marsh, head of client relations, giving her an appreciative nod when Dominic presented Olivia's analysis of emerging markets without attribution. As the meeting concluded, Theodore Hawthorne, the silver-haired founder whose name adorned the building, cleared his throat. "Before we disperse, a reminder about next weekend's annual retreat at Lake Windermere. As always, this is our opportunity to cultivate relationships with our most valued clients in a relaxed setting." Excited murmurs rippled through the room. The Hawthorne retreat was legendary. 3 days at the founder's private lakeside estate, exclusive networking with industry titans, and career-making opportunities for those invited. "Dominic, have you finalized your team's attendees?" Theodore asked. Dominic's smile didn't reach his eyes as he scanned the room. "Jackson Hayes will attend, of course, and Penelope Winters from client acquisition." His gaze landed on Olivia with calculated precision. "And I think Olivia should join us this year." The room fell silent. Everyone knew the retreat was reserved for senior staff and rising stars, not for someone in Olivia's position. "How ... inclusive of you," remarked Veronica, her tone suggesting she understood exactly what Dominic was doing. Olivia felt heat rising to her cheeks as titters of laughter, poorly disguised as coughs spread through the room. Dominic's invitation wasn't a recognition of her work. It was a setup for humiliation. "Thank you for the invitation," Olivia managed, gathering her papers. "I'll check my calendar." Dominic's smile widened. "Do, though I can't imagine what could be more important." As the meeting disbanded, Jackson Hayes fell into step beside her. With his thoughtful demeanor and genuine talent, Jackson was the rare colleague Olivia genuinely respected. "You should come," he said quietly. Despite Foster's intentions, Olivia glanced at him. "We both know why he invited me. Entertainment at my expense." Jackson's expression hardened, then changed the script. Later that evening, as Olivia described, the encounter to her brother Nathan over dinner in her modest apartment, she wrestled with the decision. "They expect me to decline out of embarrassment," she said, pushing food around her plate. "Or worse, show up and fumble through uncomfortable social situations so they can all feel superior." Nathan studied his sister with the insight of someone who had watched her fight for recognition her entire life. "When has doing what they expect ever been your style?" A slow smile spread across Olivia's face as an idea took shape. "Perhaps it's time Mr. Foster learned not to underestimate what lies beneath the surface." The retreat was 10 days away. Just enough time to prepare a response nobody at Hawthorne Financial would soon forget. Olivia's apartment transformed into a war room over the next few days. Spreadsheets and financial reports covered her dining table, while her laptop displayed the guest list for the Lake Windermere retreat, a document she wasn't supposed to have access to, but Jackson had quietly shared. Marcus Thornhill from Apex Investments, Olivia muttered, highlighting the name. Interested in sustainable energy portfolios. And there's Victoria Chandler from Global Trust, looking to diversify into emerging markets. She made detailed notes on each attendee, their investment interests, and their financial histories. Information was power, and Olivia had spent years gathering it. While being overlooked, her phone buzzed with a text from her brother. Package delivered to your building. Good luck, sis. 20 minutes later, Olivia unwrapped the garment bag Nathan had sent. Inside was an elegant emerald dress that likely cost more than her monthly rent. Nathan, I can't accept this, she protested when she called him. Consider it 4 years of birthday presents I missed while stationed overseas, he replied. His military career had taken him far from home, but distance hadn't diminished their bond. Besides, I've seen your wardrobe. Those practical pantsuits won't make the statement you need. Olivia ran her fingers over the silk. It's beautiful, but a dress won't change how they see me. No, Nathan agreed, but it might buy you the 5 seconds of attention you need before your brain does the rest. That evening, Olivia visited her former professor, Dr. Eleanor Wright, whose investment theories had revolutionized market approaches after the last financial crisis. I was wondering when you'd finally reach out, Eleanor said, pouring tea in her book-lined study. 4 years at that place, hiding your light. I wasn't hiding, Olivia protested. I was learning the system. Eleanor's knowing smile suggested she understood more than Olivia had revealed. And have you learned enough to change it? Their conversation stretched late into the night, covering investment strategies, market predictions, and a proposition that made Olivia's heart race with both fear and anticipation. As the retreat approached, Dominic's smug comments increased. I've informed the staff about dietary restrictions, he announced loudly near Olivia's desk. I assume you'll eat whatever's served, Olivia? Not like you've experienced fine dining. Penelope Winters snickered. Beside him, at 32, she represented everything Olivia wasn't in Dominic's world. Family connections, private school polish, and unquestioning loyalty to hierarchy. Actually, Olivia replied without looking up from her computer, I have a shellfish allergy, but thank you for your concern. The small assertion visibly annoyed Dominic, whose pleasure derived from her complete submission to his worldview. The night before the retreat, Jackson invited Olivia for coffee after work. In the quiet corner of a cafe away from Hawthorne's glass towers, he finally asked the question that had clearly been bothering him. Why do you stay? With your skills, any firm would be lucky to have you. Olivia considered the question carefully. My father worked 30 years at a company that discarded him during restructuring. He died believing he wasn't valuable enough to keep. She met Jackson's gaze. I won't leave until I've changed something. Jackson's expression softened. Dominic's planning something for the retreat. I overheard him and Penelope laughing about a presentation they want you to give. Without preparation. Let them plan, Olivia said with newfound resolve. I've done my homework too. As she packed for the weekend, Olivia placed her market analysis reports in her bag alongside the emerald dress. She added a small photograph. Her father in his office, smiling proudly on the day of her graduate school acceptance. Watch me, she whispered to the image. Tomorrow would mark either the end of her career at Hawthorne or the beginning of something entirely new. Either way, she wouldn't be invisible anymore. Lake Windermere gleamed like polished silver under the afternoon sun as a procession of luxury vehicles wound their way up the private drive to Theodore Hawthorne's estate. The mansion, a masterful blend of traditional architecture and modern elegance, commanded views of the water from its perch among ancient oak trees. Dominic Foster arrived early, immediately gravitating toward Theodore and the senior partners who were already sipping champagne on the lakeside terrace. His calculated laughter and practiced anecdotes floated across the gathering. "Foster's certainly working the room," observed Jackson, who had offered Olivia a ride when they crossed paths in the Perkin garage that morning. "He's insecure," Olivia replied quietly. "Notice how he keeps checking to see if Theodore is watching him." They paused at the entrance to the terrace, Olivia deliberately hanging back. The moment needed to be right. "Miss Reed." "Mr. Hayes." Theodore's assistant approached with tablet in hand. "Mr. Hawthorne has made some adjustments to tonight's dinner. Seating. Miss Reed, you'll be at the founder's table." Dominic, within earshot, nearly spilled his drink. "There must be some mistake," he interjected smoothly. "Olivia doesn't typically handle client relations at that level." The assistant blinked. "The arrangement came directly from Mr. Hawthorne. He was quite specific." Olivia thanked the assistant and turned to find Jackson watching her with newfound curiosity. "Something you forgot to mention?" Before she could respond, a ripple of excitement moved through the gathering. Dr. Eleanor Wright had arrived, a surprise to everyone, as she rarely attended industry functions since her semi-retirement. More surprising still was how she immediately scanned the crowd until her eyes landed on Olivia. "There you are, my dear," Eleanor called out warmly, approaching with arms outstretched. Dominic watched in poorly concealed shock as Eleanor embraced Olivia like a favored protégée. Others noticed, too, including Marcus Thornhill and Victoria Chandler, whose investment decisions influenced markets. "Dr. Wright," Theodore hurried over. "What an unexpected pleasure. I wasn't aware you were joining us." Olivia extended the invitation, Eleanor explained. "We've been collaborating on some rather fascinating market projections." "Didn't she mention it?" All eyes turned to Olivia, who stood transformed in her emerald dress, a picture of composed confidence that many were seeing for the first time. "It must have slipped my mind," she said with a smile that suggested nothing of the kind. Theodore's expression shifted from surprise to intrigue. "Then we have much to discuss at dinner." Throughout the afternoon, the dynamic continued to shift. When Victoria Chandler mentioned her interest in Southeast Asian markets, Olivia offered insights so precise that Victoria immediately engaged her in extended conversation. When Marcus Thornhill discussed sustainable energy investment challenges, Olivia referenced his own published paper with such thoughtful analysis that he invited her to continue the discussion later. From across the terrace, Dominic watched his carefully orchestrated humiliation unraveling. He cornered Penelope by the drinks table. "Find out what's happening. This isn't the Reed we know." Penelope attempted to intervene during Olivia's conversation with a Japanese investor, inserting herself with a champagne flute in hand. "Olivia." "Sweetie, don't monopolize Mr. Tanaka. I'm sure he'd rather discuss his portfolio with someone more senior." Mr. Tanaka raised an eyebrow. "On the contrary, Miss Reed was explaining an arbitrage opportunity specific to my holdings that no one at Hawthorne has previously identified." As evening approached and guests dispersed to prepare for dinner, Jackson caught up with Olivia in the grand hallway. "You've been playing chess while Foster thought you were playing checkers," he said with undisguised admiration. Olivia smiled. "The game isn't over yet." Indeed, as she ascended the staircase to her assigned room, Olivia caught sight of Dominic, huddled with Theodore, gesturing emphatically. Their eyes followed her progress, one man's gaze filled with suspicion, the other's with dawning recognition of something overlooked. The opening gambit had been played. Now came the more dangerous moves. The grand dining room of Hawthorne Estate glowed with candlelight, reflecting off crystal and silver. Olivia took her assigned seat at Theodore's table, acutely aware of Dominic's thunderous expression from 3 tables away. "Ms. Reed," Theodore began once the first course was served, "Eleanor tells me you've developed a rather innovative approach to emerging market volatility." Conversation at nearby tables quieted as attention shifted toward them. This was the moment Dominic had planned to exploit, putting Olivia in the spotlight, expecting her to falter. Instead, she was precisely where she needed to be. Yes, Mr. Hawthorne. By analyzing microcredit patterns in developing regions, we can predict market shifts approximately 60 days before traditional indicators reflect the change. Eleanor nodded approvingly as Olivia continued, explaining her methodology with clarity that made complex financial theory accessible even to the non-specialists present. Fascinating, murmured Victoria Chandler. This could revolutionize our approach to Global Trust's emerging market portfolio. Theodore studied Olivia with new eyes. Why haven't I seen this research before? A delicate question that could easily become accusatory toward Dominic. Olivia navigated carefully. It's a personal project I've been refining outside office hours. I wanted it to be comprehensive before presenting it formally. Very commendable, Theodore nodded, though his glance toward Dominic suggested other thoughts. After dinner, guests gathered in the estate's library for brandy. Dominic, attempting to regain control, approached with Penelope in tow. Olivia, he said with forced joviality, Theodore mentioned you've prepared a brief presentation for tomorrow's session on market trends. Perhaps you should review the material. With me tonight, given your limited experience with these presentations. It was the trap, the public humiliation he'd planned all along. Force her to present unprepared, or admit she wasn't qualified to be there. That's thoughtful, Dominic, Olivia replied calmly, but the presentation is already loaded into the system. I submitted it last week. Dominic's smile faltered. Last week? But I only just asked me to present? Yes, curious timing. Fortunately, I always prepare in advance. Before Dominic could respond, commotion erupted across the room. Marcus Thornhill was engaged in heated conversation with his assistant. What do you mean the Singapore deal is collapsing? He demanded. We've been negotiating for months. Theodore immediately moved to his valued client's side. Marcus, perhaps we can help. What's happened? Wong Investments is pulling out, Marcus explained, visibly distressed. They claim our sustainability metrics don't meet their standards, but that's impossible. Dominic stepped forward. I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding. If you'll allow me to. The issue is methodological, Olivia interjected quietly. All eyes turned to her. Wong uses the Katsuyama framework for environmental impact assessment, while Apex uses the Western Standard. They're measuring different variables. Marcus stared at her. How could you possibly know that? I analyzed Wong's recent investments. For patterns. They've rejected similar partnerships for the same reason. The solution isn't to argue metrics, but to provide a conversion table between frameworks. Can you create one? Marcus asked. I already have. Olivia reached for her tablet. I noted the potential conflict when reviewing the guest list. For the next hour, Olivia walked Marcus and his team through the conversion methodology she'd developed. By midnight, Wong Investments had tentatively agreed to resume negotiations. Pending review of the adjusted metrics. As the gathering finally dispersed for the night, Theodore clasped Olivia's shoulder. Remarkable work. We'll discuss your future at Hawthorne when we return to the office. Jackson found her later on the moonlit terrace, offering a glass of wine in silent celebration. I've never seen Foster so completely outmaneuvered, he said, genuine admiration in his voice. Olivia allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. It's not about defeating Dominic. It's about finally being seen. Jackson's gaze lingered on her face. I've always seen you, Olivia. The quiet admission hung between them, filled with possibilities neither had previously acknowledged. Inside, Dominic watched their silhouettes through the window, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. Monday morning at Hawthorne Financial brought whispers and sidelong glances as Olivia walked through the lobby. News of the weekend's events had traveled faster than the executive's luxury cars returning to the city. She settled at her desk, responding to emails from Victoria Chandler and Marcus Thornhill, both requesting private consultations based on her insights at the retreat. A calendar notification appeared on her screen. Meeting with T. Hawthorne, 10 a.m. Dominic stormed past her desk without acknowledgement, his face set in rigid lines of barely controlled fury. Penelope followed in his wake, her usual confidence notably diminished. "Quite the return," Jackson commented, pausing by Olivia's workspace with coffee in hand. The weekend had shifted something between them, a new awareness that transcended professional admiration. "It's not over yet," Olivia replied, nodding toward Theodore's office, where senior partners were already gathering dot at precisely 10 o'clock. Theodore's assistant summoned Olivia. She entered the boardroom to find the company's leadership assembled, including a visibly seething Dominic. "Ms. Reed," Theodore began, "I've spent the morning reviewing your performance history at Hawthorne. 4 years of consistently exceptional analysis that somehow never received appropriate recognition." His gaze flicked briefly to Dominic. "I've also examined your market volatility research in detail. It's groundbreaking." Dominic leaned forward. "With respect, sir, one weekend of connections doesn't erase the hierarchical experience necessary for advancement. Olivia lacks management experience, and—" "Whose fault is that?" Theodore interrupted. "She was never given the opportunity." "What exactly are you proposing?" Veronica Marsh asked, her expression suggesting she already knew and approved. Theodore turned to Olivia. "We're establishing a new division focused on emerging market strategies with direct client engagement. I'd like you to head it." Silence fell over the room. It was more than a promotion. It was the creation of an entirely new department reporting directly to the founder, bypassing Dominic entirely. "This is unprecedented," Dominic protested. "The board would need to. The board has already approved it," Theodore stated flatly. This morning, Olivia met Theodore's gaze steadily. "I appreciate the offer, but I'd like to propose an alternative structure." Surprise rippled through the room. "Rather than a separate division that might foster competition with existing departments, I'd suggest an integration model where my team collaborates across divisions." She turned to Dominic. "Including investment strategy under Mr. Foster's leadership." It was a masterful move, demonstrating leadership by refusing to participate in the same exclusionary tactics that had hindered her own progress. Theodore smiled slowly. "Gracious and strategic. Exactly why we need your voice in leadership." 3 months later, Hawthorne Financial's atrium buzzed with activity as clients gathered for the unveiling of the firm's new global investment platform, a project that had united departments previously entrenched in competition. Olivia stood at the podium, presenting alongside Jackson, whose technical expertise had complemented her financial insights throughout the development process. Their professional partnership had blossomed into something more personal, built on mutual respect and shared vision. Dominic sat in the audience, his influence diminished but not eliminated. The humbling experience had forced growth of a different kind, as he slowly learned to recognize talent regardless of its packaging. As the presentation concluded to enthusiastic applause, Olivia caught sight of 2 unexpected attendees in the back row, her brother Nathan in his dress uniform, and beside him, Dr. Eleanor Wright. Later, at the reception, Nathan embraced her. "Dad would have been so proud," he whispered. "This is just the beginning," Olivia replied, watching as Jackson approached with champagne flutes in hand. Eleanor joined them, her eyes twinkling with satisfaction. "You know, when you first came to my office 4 years ago, a brilliant student with fire in her eyes, I told you the financial world wasn't ready for someone who refused to play by its arbitrary rules." "I remember," Olivia smiled. "You said I had 2 choices: break myself to fit the system, or break the system to make room for people like me. And look what you've done. Eleanor gestured to the diverse team members now gathered around them, young talents, previously overlooked, now finding their voices under Olivia's leadership. As evening fell, Olivia and Jackson stood on the rooftop terrace of the Hawthorne building, the city lights spreading before them like earthbound stars. "Would you have believed this outcome when you drove me to the retreat?" she asked. Jackson took her hand, his touch now familiar and cherished. "I always believed in what you could do. I just never imagined I'd be fortunate enough to stand beside you while you did it." Below them, the firm continued its transformation, not through dramatic revolution, but through the quieter, more lasting change that comes when talent is finally recognized, voices long silenced are finally heard, and the boundaries of possibility expand for everyone. For Olivia Reed, it wasn't just a personal victory. It was the fulfillment of a promise made years ago to a father who had taught her that true worth isn't determined by others' recognition, but by the courage to claim one's rightful place in the world, and then to hold the door open for those who follow.